of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to TEDx Escondido, Hidden No More. We are so excited to have everyone here today. As I'm looking around, this theater looks just a little scarce with some of the seats in between. So as you'll notice, we have 4 cameras filming today, and to get some incredible angles, if I could ask everyone just to kind of group yourselves as close together as possible. Get to know your neighbor, don't worry, we're all friends and family here. It's gonna be a great day. Yeah, so just a little closer together would be amazing. There's some seats open right here in the middle. If they're not being saved, definitely come on in. Pack yourselves in. You might even get a better view in the middle. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for being here today for TEDx Escondido, Hidden No More. My name is Candace, and I'll be your host for today. Today's program features 19 remarkable speakers, and each of them are delivering a powerful message across 3 different sessions. So here's how our schedule is gonna go. We're gonna have session 1, then we're gonna have lunch, love lunch. Then we'll have session 2. Then we'll have a brief break for more snacks. Then we'll finish strong with session 3. So as I announced before, there are 4 cameras here filming the experience. So please take this moment to silence all cell phones. Any recording, any little thing that's gonna go off, any Bluetooth you have, let's make sure we silence that right now. So since we have 4 cameras, I want you to pretend they're not here. I'm gonna draw all your attention to them just so you guys have to forget about them. While they're filming, they could be filming you today, they could be filming the stage, they could be filming the speaker, but the best thing we can do is just relax and enjoy the experience we're having today. Now, these are not professional speakers. All of these speakers are just incredible leaders in our community who have an incredible message to give. So with that being said, please note, this might be done over again. So if there's a time where a speaker needs to pause and we need to restart filming and redo the speech, that might happen. So just sit tight and absorb the information twice. You might learn something new. Just so you all know, as you look to your sides, there are exit doors. In the case of an emergency, please make sure you look to your usher and head out the exit door. However, while the speaker is up here, we ask that you please do not get out of your seat for any reason while the speaker is giving their speech. Once they have left the stage, that's when you need to, if you have to, you can make your way over to the exit doors. So, today's a day to listen, laugh, and engage. We want to support our speakers the best way possible. So if our speakers do something that makes you want to laugh, give us a laugh. Let's hear it. Oh, Californians, we have good fake laughs. The next one that I'm looking for is if a speaker really drives something in your heart and you really feel the need to applaud, we can applaud them. That is absolutely okay. It is an interactive experience, everyone, so we want you to have a good time, and we got to support all of our speakers today. All right, now before anybody forgets, just so you know, these videos will be available online in about 4 to 6 weeks, and they will be global. So when you guys see the videos, like them, share them. Let's give all of our speakers the most support possible. I do want to take a huge moment to say thank you to all of our sponsors who have made this event possible today. We have Design Mo, Cute Cakes, Yelp, Show Imaging, and the California Center for the Arts Escondido. And without further ado, I love the center. I might be partial, but I do love it. So without further ado, I am honored to announce our first speaker. He is a cellist who has performed in some of the world's most prestigious venues, from Carnegie Hall to the Cairo Royal Opera House. His music has touched audiences across the globe, literally across the globe, from North America to the Middle East and to Africa. Today, Paul will share his insights on the power of music that transcends borders and connects us all. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome for Paul Sang.
There's a force more powerful than a hurricane, than nuclear energy. Its impact goes beyond the physical. It alters the trajectories of lives at the individual and societal levels. I'm talking about the power of music. Music, it's integral to our lives. Birthdays, graduations, funerals, on the battlefield, on sports fields, or homecomings, when we're sad or when we're happy, when we break up, or when we get married, we have music. Why is that? It's because music comforts us, it heals us, it empowers us. Music can connect us with our souls, with society, with our faith. It can even connect us to our friends of the furry persuasion. This is my late fur buddy, Kanga Dog. He always managed to find his way to sit at my feet when I played the cello. Even in his twilight years, struggling to walk, no matter where he was in the house, whenever he heard my wife Katie play that piano, that my friend Justin's playing there, but whenever he heard my wife Katie play the piano, he would hobble over just to sit and be with her. Music always soothed him. It grounded him. He was a good boy. Music bridges cultural divides. It fosters peace during times of comfort. Picture this: World War I, Christmas Eve 1941, on the Western Front. Out of the miry trenches, German and British troops meet on the battlefield for a remarkable confrontation. It begins with German troops singing Christmas carols. British soldiers respond by joining in. Their voices meet across the gloomy expanse between them. Nervously, soldiers from both sides climb out and meet amidst the barbed wire. This no man's land is a zone for death and destruction, but tonight, music has transformed it into a field of camaraderie. For a brief pause in the war, enemy troops lay down their arms, and instead of exchanging fire, they exchange gifts and goodwill. They even play football together. This moment of humanity transcends the horrors of war, and it began with music. Even as a seed, music is a powerful force for peace. Just imagine what it could do in our divided, war-torn world today. Music, as a performing art, breaks through racial and societal boundaries. In 1897, Marian Anderson was born. She was the first black singer to ever perform in the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Her talent was recognized at a young age, but she had to overcome poverty and prejudice during a time of racial segregation. Though she went on to become one of the world's most celebrated singers of the 20th century, success did not shield her from adversity. In 1939, the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to allow her to perform at Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C., simply because she was black. This sparked national outrage and led to a historic concert at the Lincoln Memorial, which was attended by an integrated crowd of 75,000 people and millions more listening via radio. One of those, yes. That's right, millions more. One of those radio listeners was the 10-year-old Martin Luther King Jr., who drew inspiration from that event and wrote about it later in life. Marian Anderson's artistic mastery and her courage to overcome poverty and racial exclusion inspired many after her, including the great soprano Jessie Norman. Music transforms lives. As a kid, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, the son of immigrant parents, I really didn't care for classical music. That stuff was for old people, for rich people. My only exposure were Dad's LPs and the occasional PBS telecast of Live from Lincoln Center. But junior high school changed everything for me. I got assigned to the string orchestra class. Our music teacher, Miss Vorlich, introduced us to Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and Tchaikovsky. Playing music with other kids my age, it just ignited my passion. Miss Vorlich invited me and 3 friends to study Bach and Mozart with her during our lunch periods. And despite our screechy, scratchy performance at the final concert, we were just thrilled to be making music that we had only heard on the radio or recordings. This set me on a path to a life and career in music. In 1982, I eventually enrolled in the Manhattan School of Music, and my parents scraped up the funds to buy my first student cello, while I scooped ice cream at Baskin & Robbins to pay for private lessons. This cringy photo, the one that you just saw before that, back up, thank you. This cringy photo is of me as a teenager giving my first recital in 1984. I was blessed to have an encouraging cello teacher. Despite the fact that I had started taking lessons so late, at the age of 14, she believed that if I really worked my butt off, I might be able to make it into Juilliard. Long story short, I got my bachelor's and my master's degree from Juilliard. And my doctorate from the Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins University. I've had the opportunity now to perform across the United States and internationally. And today, I have the privilege of serving as the artistic director of the San Diego Music Society. My life was transformed by the power of music. It kept me off the streets, instilling discipline, respect, and purpose. I'm the first musician in my family for as many generations as we know. Music is a vocal advocate for freedom and peace. In 1938, General Francisco Franco overthrew the Spanish Democratic Republic and established a brutal dictatorship. In response, the world-renowned cellist Pablo Casals left Spain and went into exile. Leveraging his influence as an international icon, he raised support for Spanish refugees and stood against tyranny by refusing to perform in countries that recognized Franco's government, including the United States. At this point, he began every concert by playing Song of the Birds, a Catalan Christmas carol. In 1961, when President John F. Kennedy invited Casals to perform at the White House, he struggled with that decision. But eventually he relented, and for the first time in 30 years, Casals performed in the United States. And of course, he performed Song of the Birds. He told JFK that this expressed his nostalgia for Spain and his hopes for freedom and peace. In 1971, at the age of 94, Casals was invited to play at the United Nations General Assembly. He came out of retirement to once again proclaim freedom and peace by playing Song of the Birds. I thought it would be fitting for me and Qingming to play this piece for you today, Song of the Birds. Let the spirit of freedom and peace and hope linger for a moment. Remember that music is inextricably woven into our lives. It has the power to speak to the nations and touch individual lives. So the next time you're downcast or distressed, let music refresh you and restore you. When you comfort a child, sing to them, sing with them, songs of comfort and hope, songs of courage. And the next time you gather with your friends, if even just to sing happy birthday, belt it out, in tune or not, and consider the fact that through music, you're strengthening the bonds of friendship. It is my hope and prayer that you experience the power of music by singing, learning an instrument, playing with others. Experience that spontaneous energy, the deep connection between performer and audience by attending live concerts in wonderful venues, large and small. And most of all, support music programs for young people, for they will become the world's ministers of creativity, inspiration, healing, and peace, all through the power of music.
Wow, I don't know about the rest of you, but through that whole music, goosebumps the entire time. Can we give Paul another round of applause? There's something so special about the power of music, and I think the best part about music is you can have it, listen to it anywhere, anytime, any place. So, I would like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is a marine social ecologist and the founder of Sea Collective, a nonprofit organization integrating traditional knowledge into marine conservation. Today, she will explore the crucial role that fisher folk can play in saving our coral reefs. We're almost there. Just give it a minute. Don't worry. Encore, Paul? No. He looked at me like, don't you dare. All right, everyone, put your hands back together and let's welcome Taylor Bratton.
I would like to invite you to join me on a white sand beach in the Philippines, bordered by a vibrant and thriving coral reef. There's a young marine scientist standing there, salt water dripping from her wetsuit. She's holding a snorkel, a pair of cooking tongs, and a 6-gallon bucket tied to her waist. She's performing an unusual pantomime to a confused but patient group of fishermen. She's trying to explain that the crown-of-thorns starfish, which the fishermen had just collected hundreds of, is a stress spawner. This means that handling them too roughly, whether prying them off the reef with the cooking tongs or tossing them into the buckets, can ironically lead to even more of these overpopulated, reef-eating starfish. Why? Because stress causes them to release more eggs, worsening the problem. Apologies if this isn't the tranquil beach scene you were expecting. Before I invited you, I probably should have mentioned that on this particular white sand beach in the Philippines, there's also a pit filled with 1,500 dead starfish, a young marine scientist enacting obscene charades in an attempt to save the coral reef, and alongside her, a group of traditional fishermen, the star fishermen, who have unexpectedly become the reef's most pivotal allies. You're probably curious about why I organized a starfish Armageddon. Let me explain. The crown-of-thorns starfish is native to the reefs of the Indo-Pacific, but in the absence of predators, their populations explode, and soon the whole reef is decorated in these inedible, spiny, poisonous sea stars. To make things worse, there's only one predator who will eat them in their adult phase, the Triton snail, a massive gastropod with an ornate shell that has been almost completely eliminated from coral reefs to be sold as souvenirs for tourists. Okay, but since one has too many starfish, been such a bad thing? Well, the crown-of-thorns isn't like the friendly little starfish in the aquarium touch tank. They eat reef-building corals, and they are voracious. A single crown of thorns can eat a patch of coral up to the area of a dinner plate in one day, and we collected tens of thousands of them. Addressing the crown-of-thorns starfish invasion is a temporary solution to keeping our coral reefs intact, an ecological band-aid. If we want corals to survive the climate crisis, we need to eliminate overfishing, halt unsustainable fishing practices like using dynamite and cyanide, And we need to reduce physical damage to reefs from anchoring and pollution. It may sound like two different things, ecosystem imbalance and climate change. But think of it this way. Just as a poor diet and lack of exercise compromise our health, making us more susceptible to disease, similarly, an unhealthy reef weakened by pollution or ecosystem imbalance can make corals more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And corals are seriously in trouble. In the next 25 years, we could lose almost all of our coral reefs. Since 2009, we have witnessed a progressive loss of about 14% of the world's corals. We could lose coral reefs within our lifetimes. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warns that we stand to lose a vast majority of our corals with just 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, and virtually all at 2 degrees. Just this year, we saw the hottest ocean temperatures on record. Despite covering less than 1% of the ocean's floor, coral reefs harbor a quarter of all marine species. They support fisheries that provide protein to millions of people worldwide, and they shelter our coastlines from the devastating impacts of storms. But I can say that in my short lifetime, I have seen more dead reefs than living ones. What would a world without coral reefs look like? And how could we let that happen? These questions aren't rhetorical. They're a call to action. Though the situation is dire, it's not without hope. Coral reefs have an incredible ability to recover if we let them. And the only people who know this better than the scientists are the fisherfolk. Understanding ecological decline through the eyes of those most affected, the fisherfolk, reveals not just challenges, but solutions rooted in centuries of traditional knowledge. And nobody understands the consequences of losing coral reefs more than the fishing community that collected 20,000 starfish. We didn't have the resources to hire a whole team of professional divers with fancy equipment, but we were able to muster a dedicated community of fishermen. They have boats, they're exceptionally skilled freedivers, and they have the most incentive to protect the reefs like their lives depend on it, because more than anyone, they do. It was a privilege to spend my mornings with these fishermen. As I watched them dive, effortlessly holding their breath for minutes, navigating coral crevices, and skillfully gathering starfish, I saw more than their expertise. I witnessed their instinctive connection with the sea. I realized that this is their life work. Their vocation is to hunt and to be in the ocean. They knew the name of every species. They drove their boats better than they could walk on land. And as I watched them dance with the underwater world, I realized what's really at stake. If their reefs die, they're not just losing an ecosystem, they're losing a way of life. I have had hundreds of conversations with fishermen and women around the world, and I always ask the same questions in my surveys. Are you proud of your identity as a fisher? Do you hope your children follow in your footsteps? Was your father or grandfather a fisher? And what I've gathered and inferred from their responses is that fishing affirms a sense of place, identity, and purpose. Fishers love fishing. They often view it as a part of who they are. Not only is it their livelihood, but it's their heritage and their connection to nature. But fishers are often the martyrs of ecological decline. It's easy to blame them for overfishing. More and more small-scale fishers are chasing less and less fish. A common solution to protecting coral reefs is to ban fishing or place stringent regulations on fishers who are already struggling to make ends meet. But what we've often failed to consider is that these men and women could hold the keys to the survival of coral reefs if we listen and learn rather than sideline them. My surveys don't normally stop after the last question on the data sheet. I'll often have hour-long conversations, sitting beneath banana trees or dangling our legs off a boat. And what I've realized is that these men and women know more about coral reef, seagrass, and mangrove ecosystems than I could ever learn in an advanced degree in marine science. We know that to protect ecosystems and species, we have to understand them first, to know what we're saving. Scientists and conservationists are often put in charge of protecting places because, well, we've studied it. We're experts. But we overlook our best resources. It's time we integrate fisher folk knowledge into our conservation strategies. Let me give you an example. In 2022, I was living on a remote field station in Belize, conducting a study on illegal fishing in a marine protected area that I had helped to create. I interviewed the local fishers, and I listened to the perspectives of those who I thought to be responsible for the loss of protected species from this beautiful marine reserve. I thought that my results would indicate that we need to increase regulations or strengthen enforcement. But after speaking to hundreds of kind, compassionate, and environmentally aware fishers, my perspective completely changed. I found that the demographic most likely to be caught fishing illegally was the group with the lowest social mobility, the highest resource dependency, and on average, lived closest to the poverty line. Protecting our coral reefs is not about punishing people trying to make a living. It's about creating accommodating conditions that allow people to fish sustainably while providing pathways for people to rise out of poverty. My work with the star fishermen showed me how deeply connected these communities are to their reefs. But the Belizean fishermen taught me that if we want to protect our marine ecosystems, we first have to protect the people who depend on them. This is interesting. A similar study in Kenya found that you could predict with relatively high certainty what type of fishing gear a person uses based on the type of floor they have in their homes. Wealthier fishers can afford concrete floors, while poorer fishers often lived on dirt. They found that the poorest fishers were the most likely to fish with unsustainable gear. This study highlights the direct link between socioeconomic status and fishing practices. By making coral reef conservation more inclusive, we can change fishing practices and ultimately have a positive impact on our coral reefs. So, what if we first focused on human development? What if we built up the capacity of women in fishing villages, focused on education, healthcare, and quality of life? Can we change the way that people interact with the marine environment? Can we decrease necessary dependence on marine resources if we make people's lives better first? Conservation is most effective when we work with the people who rely directly on the ecosystem. So instead of kicking people out, why don't we invite them to become stewards of their resources, like the star fishermen, who went on to become honorary marine scientists? They now work for the local government, conducting studies to monitor crown of thorns outbreaks, instead of fishing on an overfished reef. There are plenty of other examples of ways where we can create equitable solutions to preserving nature, but I'll leave you with a few of my favorites. One option is that we can invite fishers to become sea ranchers through sustainable aquaculture, where with the right resources and support, they can manage, tend to, and even repopulate species that have been depleted in the wild. We can also invite fishers to become marine managers or park rangers. The Bantay Dagat are fisher folk turned enforcement officers in the marine reserves of the Philippines. They understand how other fishers fish. They know the reef like the back of their hands, and they get to make a good living protecting their coral reefs. Aside from creating culturally affirming, meaningful work for fishing communities, we can also simply take their ideas into consideration when protecting coral reefs. For example, when marine protected areas were created in Kenya, they did not work. Fisher folk didn't resonate with the idea of a marine protected area. So some fishers suggested they rename them to Tengefus, which means to set aside in Kiswahili. And it worked. Swahili fishers culturally understand the importance of saving something for later. We can also learn a lot about conservation by understanding the traditional practices of fishing communities. Pacific Island nations have spiritually managed their coral reefs for millennia through fisheries closures called taboos, which is actually where we got the word to explain socially questionable activities. Taboos temporarily close an area of a reef to fishing to provide for feasts or festivals or to honor the death of an elder. It would be taboo to fish in a spiritually significant area. By understanding these traditional practices, we can make coral reef conservation exponentially more effective. Now, we can't expect fishing communities to reverse climate change, but we can look to them to provide solutions on how to make our reefs more resilient as our oceans warm. Think of it like CPR. Fisherfolk are the EMTs that keep the ocean's heart pumping, keeping coral reefs alive. Because once they're gone forever. So, what if we changed the status quo and prioritized fishers' perspectives? What if we leveraged traditional ecological knowledge to manage reef fisheries? What if we looked to fisherfolk for solutions on how to manage the resources that they know best? Now, let's go back to that beach in the Philippines. The only reason we were able to save the reef from being eaten alive by the crown of thorns starfish was because of the star fishermen's determination to protect their livelihoods and culture. Now it's our turn to approach global reef conservation with the same spirit of collaboration and empathy as we keep those closest to the sea at the heart of our efforts. So I'll leave you with this. As we are fighting to save our planet, we have to make sure our most valuable soldiers are at the front lines. Saving the oceans isn't just about protecting fish and corals. It's about making sure the sea's biggest advocates have the resources they need to protect their livelihoods, cultures, and home. Thank you.
Wow, I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling very inspired to save the coral reefs. That was amazing. If Taylor was my science teacher, I probably would have passed. Can we give Taylor one more round of applause? She was amazing. Now our next speaker is a true Renaissance man in entertainment. He's a screenwriter, actor, director, producer, and playwright, with a career spanning every corner of the industry. He's best known for his Broadway play, Latino Logs, and has worked with legends like Sidney Poitier and written for icons like Jim Carrey. So today he will share how writing has been a lifeline through his career. Put your hands together as a warm welcome for Rick Nahara.
Wow, great introduction. I always feel a little insecure about calling myself a writer, but I'm a writer. I'm a writer. It's what I do. But I understand I have horrible dyslexia. I flunked school. I was bad in school. I have ADHD. Look, a camera. But I'm a writer. That's what I am. Writing, it seems like it's an assignment. Why is that? When we look at writing, we think of it as an assignment. Writing is like life. You can't fail at life. Life, you exist, you create, you archive your world. That's what writing is. Knowing who you are, saying, I belong, I'm here. That's what writing is. It's saving your life. Now, have you ever asked yourself, can I be a writer? The answer is yes. And most likely, the only person telling you no is actually you. Look here. This is the first beginning of writing, storytelling. Look at that. Cave paintings in France, done about 28 to 30,000 years ago. Isn't it amazing? These are cave lions. Look at it closely. You can see it. They're hunting bison. Now imagine someone going to the most sacred spots, going to a deep, dark cave to tell this story. A cave that actually has cave lions most likely in it. Who would risk their life to tell a story? Because the story is so important. That's what they have to do. They have to tell the story. And they don't care whether they can do it right or wrong or punctuation or writing and grammar. They want to tell the story. Look at that. Cave lions hunting bison. But two interesting things happen when you look at it. One, the storyteller comes alive again. That painting is telling you a story done about 30,000 years ago. That artist is alive today. Another thing happens, a creative thing happens, is your mirror neurons are going off in your head right now. You feel the story. You're looking at that story, and you are in that story itself. You're that. Now, let me explain mirror neurons. Mirror neurons they're discovered about 20 years ago, mirror neurons. They're discovered in Italy by an Italian scientist, and one day he hooked this macaque monkey up to neurons and everything else to study his brain. And in his brain, he could study when the neurons were flashing and what part of the brain they were flashing, and all these things were going on. And he would come in and feed the macaque monkey a peanut. Every day he fed the monkey a peanut, until one day the scientist fed the peanut not to the monkey but to himself. He ate the peanut, and an interesting thing happened. The same mirror neurons went off in the scientist and the monkey. They mirrored each other. The monkey was feeling what the scientist was feeling. He was actually mirroring his actions, feeling pleasure sensations, all that stuff. So the monkey was the scientist. He became the scientist in his mind, and the scientist was the monkey. And the Mayans have a different term for it. It's called in Lakesh. You are my other self. People that go to theater actually are more inclined to give to charity. Why? Because people that go to theater see people playing characters that they relate to. They walk in those people's shoes. That's what mirror neurons do. Mirror neurons give us compassion. We look at that painting and we're moved by that painting. We feel it. And every time you read a story or hear a story, you're Huck Finn going down the Mississippi River. You're Anne Frank hiding away from the Nazis. You are the characters. You're the kids and soccer players up in an Andes mountain trying to survive, feeling the emotions they feel. That's what happens with mirror neurons. And that's what's amazing about writing. You're sharing your life. You're archiving your life. And when you do, you save your life. Think about it. Earlier, I learned a very important lesson. I met with Dr. Sanjeev Chopra. Sanjeev Chopra is a scientist and a doctor. He's probably the best surgeon when it comes to liver in the world. His brother is Deepak Chopra. It's a very intelligent family. He teaches at Harvard Med. How did I work with this guy? Unbelievable. Me with dyslexia and bad spelling and all that. Because he both believed one thing, purpose. He told me, he goes, Rick, I like hear you speaking, and I like your purpose. You like writing. I do too. That's my purpose, my dharma. Is that, well, there's going to be a plague coming, and it's called COVID. So we're going to have to isolate for a while. And while we're isolating, some of the best work happens during plays. Shakespeare wrote during plays. Newton discovered his theory of gravity during a play. We should do something too. And using the spirit of yes, I said, yes, let's do something together. He said, let's write a book. So we wrote a book together. It's called Ignite the Fire Within. And we started learning things about writing. And writing taught me one thing, how together that it unites us all. I wrote with Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, and we sat there over a Zoom and wrote a book, and I learned many things about writing. And some of the things I learned were this: being honest, being vulnerable, and being truthful. Now, if you're wondering how to be a writer, first of all, say yes. Do you want to be a writer? Yes. Okay, now you need to say it to someone else here. Say it to someone else. Say, hello, my name is so-and-so, and I admit I'm a writer. This is a little bit like Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? Do it to another person. Say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I admit I'm a writer. Great. That's the first part of writing. You said yes out loud. Now you told another person yes. Now you have to look for a story. The truth is, stories will find you. You don't have to go. In fact, if you want to, you can go to any coffee shop and watch two people talking. Now go next to them and listen to every word they say and write it down, verbatim. You got a great dialogue, you got a great story, and there it is. Now don't do it creepily, okay? Don't let them know they're watching. They're just observing. You're writing something else. And if you look at the story, you start to read it back to yourself and you go, wow, there's dialogue. There's truthful dialogue. There's now a story. Now, if you put another scene together, that's another scene, add a plot, add a conflict, add an objective, all of a sudden the mirror neurons are going off in your head of your reader as well as you. You're experiencing the story. Fiction is stranger, or they say is fiction. Oh, what? Fact is stranger than fiction? I forgot the term. We'll edit that part out. Stranger than fiction. Okay, fact is stranger than fiction. Okay. Truth is stranger than fiction. You don't have to work hard. And let me illustrate a point. Okay, this is a scene that I did years ago in a play I wrote called Latins Anonymous. And in this scene, I'm at a Latins Anonymous meeting, and we're not fighting alcohol. We're actually fighting racism and culture and things like that, and we're very misunderstood. And us Latinos stand up there and we share. So we'll try this. Hi, my name is Rick. Thank you. And I admit I'm a Latino. The first time I realized I was Latino, I was 9 years old. I told my mom I was going to play with the Mexican kids up the street, but she said, you are Mexican, so you can stay home and play with yourself. But I got bored with that, so I went up to the street, and there was a kid named Bradley, and he looked at me, and he took the soccer ball out of my hand. He goes, hey, that's my ball. And I go, no, it's my ball. He goes, no, it's my ball. And I said, no, it's my ball. And he grabbed the ball, and he threw me on the ground, and he said, well, it's my ball now, wetback. I'd never heard the term before. Wetback, dryback, quarterback, halfback, wetback. It didn't sound like a bad word, but just to play it safe, I kicked Bradley's ass. The schoolyard supervisor came up and said, why'd you hit Bradley? Why'd you hit Bradley? And Bradley, all with his pride and arrogance, was now crying hysterically. And I said, because he called me a wetback. And she looked at me, and she said, are you Mexican? I said, yes. Well, then you are a wetback. Apologize to Bradley. Come on now. Sounds like an amazing story. That's when I realized I was Latino. But that's not the end of the story. Actually, there are 3 other Latino families growing up in La Mesa. One was Juan Vargas. He lived on a chicken ranch down the street from me. I thought he was really a Mexican. He ended up being a United States congressman. The other was Ellen Ochoa, who became an astronaut. And the third one is me, a writer. Not bad for Mexicans out of La Mesa. I've realized that truth is stranger than fiction. And I've realized that our stories are important to tell. And I realize when I tell my story, I archive my story, I live again. And it goes on, and these stories will continue. And we all are part of these different stories that tell our story of humanity. Look at that cave painting. Do you see it? You can hear those lions growling under their breath. You can feel the majesty of a lion, the same feelings that artist did 30,000 years ago. You're now part of the story, and that story continues, just like you do. Whatever you do, write, just write. Write, forgetting about punctuation and grammar and words and all that. Write without caring, without anyone watching you. Just write. For God's sakes, write. We're doing this TED Talk here in Escondido. Escondido in Spanish means hidden, right? Hidden. I'm asking you, don't hide your talents. Don't be hidden. Whatever you do, write, because writing will save your life. Thank you.
Back in New York, I am the head of development for a nonprofit called Robin Hood. When I'm not fighting poverty, I'm fighting fires as the assistant captain of a volunteer fire company. Now, in our town, where the volunteers supplement a highly skilled career staff, you have to get to the fire scene pretty early to get in on any action. I remember my first fire. I was the second volunteer on the scene, so there was a pretty good chance I was going to get in. But still, it was a real foot race against the other volunteers to get to the captain in charge to find out what our assignments would be. When I found the captain, he was having a very engaging conversation with the homeowner, who was surely having one of the worst days of her life. Here it was, the middle of the night. She was standing outside in the pouring rain, under an umbrella, in her pajamas, barefoot, while her house was in flames. The other volunteer who had arrived just before me, let's call him Lex Luthor, got to the captain first and was asked to go inside and save the homeowner's dog. The dog! Oh, I was stunned with jealousy. Here was some lawyer or money manager who for the rest of his life gets to tell people that he went into a burning building to save a living creature. Just because he beat me by 5 seconds. Well, I was next. The captain weighed me over, said, Bezos, I need you to go into the house. I need you to go upstairs, past the fire, and I need you to get this woman a pair of shoes. I swear. So, not exactly what I was hoping for, but off I went. Up the stairs, down the hall, past the real firefighters who were pretty much done putting out the fire at this point, into the master bedroom to get a pair of shoes. Now, I know what you're thinking, but I'm no hero. I carried my payload back downstairs where I met my nemesis and the precious dog by the front door. We took our treasures outside to the homeowner where, not surprisingly, his received much more attention than did mine. A few weeks later, the department received a letter from the homeowner thanking us for the valiant effort displayed in saving her home. The act of kindness she noted above all others, someone had even gotten her a pair of shoes. You know, in both my vocation at Robin Hood and my avocation as a volunteer firefighter, I am witness to acts of generosity and kindness on a monumental scale. But I'm also witness to acts of grace and courage on an individual basis. And you know what I've learned? They all matter. So as I look around this room at people who either have achieved or are on their way to achieving remarkable levels of success, I would offer this reminder. Don't wait. Don't wait till you make your first million to make a difference in somebody's life. If you have something to give it now. Serve food at a soup kitchen, clean up a neighborhood park, be a mentor. Not every day is going to offer us a chance to save somebody's life, but every day offers us an opportunity to affect one. So get in the game. Save the shoes. Thank you. Come back. Thank you.
Well, in Rick's defense, I am also not a fan of Bradley. This is just a gentle reminder that there is no photography or recording while our speakers are afoot, so please make sure that those cell phones are tucked away tight in your bags. Now, our next speaker is an author, model, and business leader who has turned her journey as a traumatic brain injury survivor into powerful advocacy. Today, she'll share insights on navigating a brain injury and building inclusive workplaces, empowering us to turn our challenges into our strengths. Please join me in welcoming Kelly Lewis.
Don't you hate it when you feel like you want to crawl under a rock or hide in a cave until something yucky passes? Right? Me right now? Something changes in your life that you're not prepared for. You don't know how to approach it. Usually that feeling passes pretty quickly, right? I'm feeling calm, you're all feeling good. I felt that for 7 years straight. You see, something about me is I've always marched to the beat of my own drums. I did not follow a conventional path in early adulthood. I carved my own path. From developing a career in modeling for 10 years, I started my own production company. On the side, I reported out on heavy metal concerts, all while working in the cool biotech industry during the day. I thought I made it. I figured out a way to turn all my favorite things into my own career. I know where I'm going next in life. I'm happy. Until 2016. I slipped. I fell. A week later, I went into work and a colleague found me in a random part of the office just sitting there with a vacant expression on my face. I think I was looking for HR, and she knew me well enough to know that something was really wrong. She took me to the ER. I didn't know my name. My MRI and CT scans were normal. I was diagnosed with just a concussion. I was put on bed rest for 3 months. Concussions are temporary, right? Some rest and then you're good. No. I lived the next 7 years in a permanent state of having a severe concussion. I called it my perma-concussion. On the days my symptoms were very bad, my bad brain days. Little did everyone know, my bad brain days were always. I learned quickly that concussions are very complex. I had severe daily migraines, vision problems, couldn't walk right or hold my balance, suffered from what I call reverse vertigo. So anytime I would just kind of look up, I would get the same dizzying effects as if you were up high looking down. Car rides put me back in bed, extreme fatigue, inability to exercise, terrible memory. My speech was a myriad of mumbles and jumbles, and a lot of times I would know what I want to say, and the words couldn't or wouldn't come out. And it all depended on the day or my stress level. Vomiting. I couldn't lay down at a certain angle or else I would pass out. Nothing I could do about that. I'd even have a strange new sensitivity to random sounds. So if I hear someone chewing, like way over there, or maybe the air conditioning is whistling, no matter what, I would hyper-focus on it, and it would make me very grouchy. All that along with a myriad of other symptoms that I didn't even realize were a thing until later, and they have a lot of acronyms. We won't do that. I was told to wait it out. So while I waited, I felt I had to do something. I created tools and tricks to help my day-to-day and keep an illusion of being normal intact. So I wore nice makeup, put on an extra bubbly personality. At home, though, I was a shell of the person I was before my fall. I was an alien in my own body. After that first year with my concussion, a traumatic brain injury, hope dissipated. At the time, there were no resources on concussions, particularly for women. The medical field was quite behind. I was really sick, and I began to believe I would never get better. The only thing I thought I could do, the one thing I could control, was to create more ways to hide how sick I was. I needed to keep my job. I wanted to win back the friendships lost because I couldn't be the person I was before I fell. I couldn't communicate my needs, and worse, I didn't know what my needs were. I was scared to admit how bad this was. Hiding my concussion while navigating my new disability at work, in my personal life, only made things worse. I became more sick by spending the insurmountable energy in pretending I was fine. All this just to hide behind my fears and being judged, afraid of losing my job, scared of never finding the right medical help, being perceived as less than, and terrified of admitting to myself that this was my new reality. After a couple more years, I gave up. Neurologist after neurologist, there was no help. I remember I left one doctor appointment in particular in tears. I was berated for doing nothing. I could no longer bear the thought of being in the office, and while I tried to ask for resources like a shade over my desk to offset the migraine-inducing fluorescent lighting, or a space out of the open office environment so my misophonia, the sound thing, wouldn't go into overdrive. So I quit my job that I fought so hard to keep. Surrounded by loved ones, I still felt very isolated, unable to relate, to get a moment of relief, to keep up an illusion of being okay. I finally gave in and conceded to the fact that this was my life now, forever. But giving up is not who I am, and it is certainly not how I was raised. I held on to this one final shred of perspective a dear friend gave me. Don't throw in the towel. Don't throw it in. Refold the towel. So I reapplied to my job. I was graciously given another chance. The power of perspective is mighty. Not long after my return from work, there happened to be a neurodiverse event held by a business resource group. I thought, what is this? Why not go to it? Maybe I can learn something. There was a slide about concussions and brain injury. There were actually resources. For the first time, I felt seen. I realized I wasn't finding community before because my community had changed. This is my new community now, from all places. From my employer? Unexpected. If this business resource group or event didn't exist, I don't know where my future would have gone. A workplace holding space for employees with disabilities truly does foster an environment for inclusivity and empowerment. These things are not just lip service. They're not there just to get the work done. They're not a trend. They're there because they're needed, and all people need community. Without that, we are lost, and we are not our best selves. Every person deserves a chance to be their best and most authentic self. All of you. Through that, I then learned how to ask for help. Knowing what the help needed to be no longer was the problem. I just needed to say, I need help. To say no. To speak my boundaries. I can do this, but with these tools. I can do that, but for this amount of time. I can't do that. I don't feel well today. Let's take a rain check. Who cares what someone thought of me? This was about me to help me survive. Through speaking up, colleagues and friends or family then learned how they too can help. Assumptions don't get anyone anywhere, and trust me, there were a lot of assumptions along the way, such as equating my concussion to just a headache or a stressful day. Hallway whispers of unkind things of being labeled a ditz, label, lazy, incapable, brain dead. All while inside, I was just struggling to simply function each day. Mostly because of those tricks I created early on. Most people didn't realize I was suffering. Without resources, communication tools, or general awareness, everyone was in the dark. That doesn't help anyone. Sharing my needs also provided space for others to share theirs, to make changes at work for accessibilities and accommodations, to fit our individual needs so we can successfully provide for ourselves and not have to live in pain, live in fear, mask our truths, become more unwell. I began to feel empowered. That fear I felt for so long funneled into strength. With the business resource group at my side, powerful conversations with company leadership took place. Employees were advocating for themselves. We were being heard, seen, and change was happening. Knowledge on how to request and receive accommodations became a broad initiative, helping colleagues know there is support and tools available for them. Accommodations and assets were being provided to employees, allies, their families. Things began to pivot for me after finding that inclusive work group. Through it, I found a concussion-focused rehabilitation center, and my now friend, Dr. Stephanie Barbakoff, treated me. I can actually ride an elevator, I can have a full day of fun, or run errands, do chores. Maybe I'll have pesky symptomatic issues here and there, and I always will. But I'm armed with the right tools to navigate them. I'm living, I'm thriving. Before my brain injury, I thought I was where I needed to be in life. It is now, afterward, and with a disability, that I am the best version of myself. I'm proud to survive my brain injury. I'm proud of my disability. Thanks to an inclusive workplace, in finding my community, and above all else, thanks to perseverance and leaning on the power of perspective to push through the darkness of brain injury and find a way to live to the best of my ability again. So, do not lose hope through life's challenges. Do not be quiet. Advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves, for yourself, and go forth in this life with the strength to better it. Thank you.
I should have used waterproof mascara. Wow, that was an incredibly inspiring and a powerful story. Incredible. So our next speaker has dedicated his life to healing through creativity as the executive director of the Veterans Art Project. With a master in fine arts and ceramics and experiencing teaching at Grossmont College, he has created a space for veterans and their families to heal through art. Today, he'll share his journey and explore how art can serve as a bridge to healing and community. Let's give a warm welcome for Steve Dilley.
Thank you. "9/11 affected me deeply. If you were living here in San Diego in 2003 and 2004, there was a reoccurring newspaper article about a service member returning home here after an extended deployment, and they would have a stack of money and buy a motorcycle and mix it with a 30-pack of beer, and how quickly they became part of the statistic that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And in 2024, that number has not changed. I believe that having put people in harm's way and then to have them return here where they could be safe and then to lose them, I always understood that to be a real tragedy. So I started talking with my family and friends. Everyone encouraged me to reach out and help veterans artistically. And little did I realize that my sharing my passion with others, that my reaction was a part of my own sense of artistic responsibility. My parents met in the Navy. I have a master's in fine arts and ceramics. My personal story really began after having completed high school, not knowing what I was going to do. Luckily for me, a friend of mine talked to me in my first college ceramics class. I could see firsthand the impact that art making had on individuals. I learned about process, and more importantly, I learned about service. It's no secret that art making is therapeutic. Transition stress, isolation, loss of mission, loss of direction. This can all be detrimental to the individual and their families. So I needed to share this in our community. There was a ceramicist named Glenn Lukens. In the 1950s, he was going out and getting veterans that he would describe as catatonic, and he was getting them into the ceramics lab at USC, reporting that these individuals had deeply cathartic and transformative experiences working with the clay. And then they'd move on. And when they moved on, they became engaged with their lives and their families again. Ceramics gave them an opportunity to move on and through events that really deeply affected them. So with all of this in my mind, in 2009, I started the Veterans Art Project, offering ceramic classes to demonstrate the usefulness of art making to the veteran community. Bruce, Michael, Mick, Darren, Tonya, Reggie, Rocio, Cheryl, Mateo, Ivan, Dan, Colin, Maria, Tony, and Katie. These are survivors that I can now speak of. To see these people after they've dug their hands into that terra firma, you can hear it in their voices, and you see it in their faces when their eyes light up like sunrise. It is not a match that we strike, but a bucket that we fill. When people open up a bag of clay, it's really to open themselves up externally. And process is an opportunity to be in the moment. Process is an opportunity that allows creativity to develop, to expand, to grow and open up. By sharing our stories visually, we can create real community in community. And ceramics is deeply connected with the concept of service. And for the veteran community, service is a deeply held value, one I value. Do you have a favorite cup? I sure do. Cups touch us in profound ways. And what is life without touch? For a cup of water to a person in the desert may be life-sustaining. Does anyone notice how we teach children how to drink from a sippy cup? Does anyone tend to see that we hold cups over our heads in celebration? And what is hospitality if no cup or beverage is offered when your neighbor comes to visit? Sometimes we break cups as a symbol of our most precious union with others. And a sip of water from a cup to a dying person may be their last living act. Cups sustain life. Cups are utensils, everyday objects, pieces of art, and sculptures. Cups are vehicles for sharing our stories. Cups root us in the moment, or we spill water down our shirts. A safe and familiar object. Humans connect through touch. Humans connect through touch. And what is life without touch? Through this hands-on approach, we can cross distances of both heart and mind, allowing people to share. In many ways, people are cups. For when we are empty, we can feel full. And when we are full, we sometimes feel empty. When we teach people how to create objects using the creative process, we open up new avenues for thoughts, dreams, and aspirations to be shared in a new way, a simple and profound way. So this is my way of sharing what I know, right? And for me personally, creativity in the arts has been a way for me to go about my life and make sense of my life. And I like to think that this is what I did to survive. But I'd like to leave you with this idea that a simple cup made by hand, shared with friends, is the most intimate of objects because a cup touches our lips.
Isn't it incredible how the arts can bring us peace and therapy? I mean, really, how lucky are we? Our next speaker is a visionary leader in local government, known for introducing innovative tech-forward solutions to the public sector. Today, she will explore how we are not just voters, but investors in our community. Let's give a warm welcome to Jennifer Shenick.
Today, I would like to thank you for your daily investment into our $2 trillion industry here in the United States. Your investment shapes your community today and for generations to come. And you are not just a faithful investor. You are also a loyal customer. Thank you for using our products and services every day. Interestingly, most of you only check in on your investment or communicate your customer satisfaction level once every 2 to 4 years. We must be doing an excellent job. While it may sound like I'm referring to a private company, I'm actually talking about your local government agency. Townships, municipalities, cities, counties across this country. You are an investor in your local government agency, and you are a customer of their products and services. How do I know this? I am one of over 10 million local government employees in this country, working at the direction of elected leaders to use your part of $2 trillion to create a better future for you, your friends, your family, and future generations. With your investment, we create popular products and services, such as clean drinking water, access, it's an important one, access to 911 emergency responders, reliable road infrastructure, including fixing all those potholes. We inspect buildings to make sure they're safe. We create beautiful parks, public art, and a roadmap for a prosperous economic future. But I haven't always worked in local government. I started my career at a $44 billion international publicly traded company, where I worked across borders and time zones and cultures to create products and services that met both customer and investor expectations. I've also worked in smaller family-owned businesses and in nonprofits serving communities. I made the conscious choice to serve in local government because I want to see my work make a difference, and because I noticed some inefficiencies in local government agencies that I hope to one day help fix. Big task, I know. Now, working inside of local government, I have learned a lot. And I empathize with the challenges, and there are many. Sometimes so many I don't even know where to start. Often working in local government, I ask myself, why do things take so long? Why is it so much harder to reach our goals than it is in the private sector or in nonprofits? But there are reasons for that. And I found that my biggest challenge is not the bureaucracy. It is communication with the public. In local government, we refer to members of the public as stakeholders and community members and voters, but rarely as customers or investors. What would happen if, as local government employees, we started treating everyone we serve as both a customer and an investor. How would things change? The most successful companies and nonprofits in the world focus on meeting customer needs. At the $44 billion company, I learned the importance of an organization communicating the solutions they offer to their customers, rather than just the products and services they create. So for example, in local government, instead of focusing on the fact that we build roads and we build sidewalks, we might consider saying, it is our responsibility to create pathways to help you safely and efficiently get to where you want to go, however you want to get there. This shift in perspective matters because it changes the focus from what we do to what we can do for you, and it opens up avenues for us to find creative solutions. I recently had the opportunity to attend a brand new sports and event venue in Los Angeles. When addressing the crowd for the first time, the owner of the sports team, who is also an investor in that stadium, asked us, how are the seats way up there, furthest away from the court? Are the seats comfortable? Does it feel like sitting in your living room? And indeed, those were some of the most comfortable basketball stadium seats I've ever sat in. And with the technology in that stadium, it did kind of feel like sitting in my living room. That investor knows that creating an amazing experience for all customers, not just a few, leads to success. It may be easy to understand that you are a customer of your local government agency, but it might be more difficult to understand how you're an investor. So let's talk about that for a moment. Every time you shop locally and you purchase a product, such as new shoes or a cup of coffee or your favorite sandwich, and you pay sales tax, or if you pay property tax, a little bit of that money goes to your local government agency, and that is your investment in your community's future. And you should expect to see dividends on that investment in the form of your community blossoming over time. You are an investor in your community and a customer. So in local government, we often wonder how we can communicate more effectively with our audience. There are some government agencies that are stuck in using outdated communication methods built on what I like to refer to as a town square model. It made sense when local government agencies in this country were first being formed for people to meet in town halls or in city centers, to share information and to hear from their elected leaders. But that in-person communication doesn't always work for us anymore, does it? We need to invest in modern forms of communication to reach more people. For example, why can't you simply text your elected leaders or government officials and tell them what you want? As a local government employee, why can't I see that information aggregated into a dynamic data dashboard so that I can more easily see community comments and sentiment trends at scale to help create policies and programs and projects for your community? With new technologies like generative AI becoming more ubiquitous, I believe we will start to see a decrease in cost for communication tools and technologies that allow government agencies to have access to information and insights that the private sector has been using for decades to more clearly communicate with their customers and their investors. In local government, if we had a customer and investor first mindset, it would allow us to adopt new technology more quickly, and improved communication tools would help us build trust. Trust in government has declined over the decades. These days, most people trust a corporate brand or strangers influencing them on social media more than they trust their elected leaders. what if we started investing in communication strategies to help build trust, just like private companies do? For example, how about if a local government agency held a quarterly public earnings call, just like a publicly traded company, to report on its fiscal health, its progress towards projects and programs, or potential roadblocks? Or what if local government agencies could have some fun and create short-form videos so that you could get to know us better and we could report on our successes? The reality is that most government agencies don't have the resources or community support to invest in this type of trust-building communication. So, how do you know if your investment is paying dividends in your community? You certainly have a feeling as to whether or not your community is headed in the right direction. But for those of you who are quantitatively inclined, I have a simple equation for you. Take your community's total revenue, divide it by the total population, and compare that to a community that you admire. If your potential investment per resident is lower, your local government agency might need more resources to meet your customer and investor expectations. So the next time you vote, next time you think about your investment in your local community or your customer satisfaction level, please remember that your elected leaders and your government staff members are working diligently to create a better future for your community. I wake up and go to bed every day thinking about the community that I serve. And I know that many of my colleagues do the same, and same with local government employees across our country. And we are committed to figuring out how to continue to serve you better. Thank you for your faithful investment and for being a loyal customer.
Wow, how lucky are we to have her right here in Escondido? We win. Now, I am very excited to announce our next younger speaker, a young leader who's making a significant impact in his school and community. Today, he'll share his thoughts on the power of words and their magical ability to shape our world. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Xander Chan.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to take you on a journey into the magical world of words. As Sigmund Freud once said, words have magical power. They can bring the greatest happiness or the deepest despair. I like to think of words as magical spells. If used responsibly, words can inspire millions to make positive changes in their community, empower people to be innovators, or heal someone who is wounded both emotionally and physically. But if used irresponsibly, words can be destructive, have the power to cause lots of pain, or negatively change the pathway of someone's life. I myself was caught in a spell of negativity. Back when I was a little kid who had so much hope, joy, and excitement going to kindergarten, saw my teacher, who on the outside looked so trusting and caring. Little me said to myself, whatever this person does is going to be the right thing. But that was far from the truth. She always told me that I was doing things wrong. She would call me out for my mistakes in front of my peers, like using the wrong type of blue for a small project, and change my precious green card into a yellow one. But the worst thing that I remember her doing is telling my friends, don't be Xander's friend. or else you will turn into a crybaby like him. When I heard her say this, my brain and my heart believed it, and I absorbed it as the truth. This deeply impacted me. It caused me to be less social and shut myself out from most people I knew at the time. This even impacted my home life. If my parents brought friends over and they brought their kids over, my first thought was to distance myself and get as far away as possible. And guess what? The entire time I was at my school, I made no new friends because the deep feeling of failing her and others was buried into my brain. And even though I learned to recover from that moment, it still stings to think about today. But now, let's dive into on how positive words can change someone's life. In particular, guess who? Mine. Back in 3rd and 4th grade, I wasn't really the most brave kid. I was pretty shy, and I think you know why. And I moved to this new school here in Escondido named Conway Academy. But at this school, I found out that students were required to greet visitors such as the superintendent of the school district. And when I found this out, I was shook. I was not thrilled at all. I did not want to do that. But then it changed when I met a teacher named Mrs. Ellsworth, who persuaded me to join this leadership crew named Ambassadors, which required me to greet visitors, but also give them an informational tour about our school. I don't even know how she convinced me to do it, honestly, when it was like the last thing I wanted to do. Maybe it was because she was one of the most patient, kindest, and loving teachers that I have ever met. She would always tell me things that boosted my confidence, like, "You never fail to make me proud," or "Your talent in speaking truly is a special gift." Because she saw potential in me and used my mistakes to help me grow into a better person, I'm now able to speak confidently in a public environment. For example, in front of all of you. So, as you may be able to see, words have immense power. They can change someone's life for the good or for the bad. And don't think I'm just making stuff out about this immense power stuff. In a book called Words Can Change Your Brain by Dr. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist, and Mark Robert Waldman, a communications expert, states that positive words can alter the expression of genes, strengthen areas in our frontal lobe, and promote cognitive function. Phrases about love, encouragement, and compliments can help our brain enter a state of positivity emotionally and physically, while also changing our brain functions. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. And you might be thinking at this point while I'm talking, "Hey Xander, I want to learn how to use the power of words responsibly." Well, it starts with this. It starts with us being thoughtful and mindful of the kinds of words we use. So before you speak, always ask yourself a question. Is what I'm about to say going to harm this person or inspire them? A great example of inspiration through words is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." His words did not just speak of a vision, but they ignited a movement that continues to change the lives of millions of people today. Real quick, let me ask the audience a question. How many of you are parents? Okay, quite a lot. So let me ask the parents. How would you inspire your kiddos if you found out that they were struggling to keep up with their grades? Would you tell them that they need to pay more attention to the teacher, you need to read more books, and you need to get off those dang video games? Or would you tell them that you believe in them and their abilities to make the right decisions and that you can't wait to see how they figure out how to improve? And as a kid who has experienced both pretty recently, the second option worked a lot better for me. Additionally, we could also think of ourselves as gardeners. Every word that we speak or write could be imagined as a seed that we plant. When we plant seeds of positivity, love, and encouragement, we will make a beautiful garden for us and the people around us. But when we plant seeds of hate, criticism, and negativity, we will make a field of weeds that choke out the beauty and charm of life. In conclusion, words are powerful tools. They are magical spells that can create or destroy. Be the gardener of positivity and watch as your world and the world of others around you blooms in response. Thank you.
Loved it. Okay, wow. And at only 12 years old, can we get another round of applause for Xander? That was amazing! My goodness. Words carry weight, no pressure. Okay. Well, everyone, we've made it through the first block. And as I promised, it's time for lunch. I love lunch. So as you enjoy your meal, I encourage you to mix and mingle and connect with the fellow TEDx attendees. And during the break, if you have the opportunity, go ahead, open your phones, go to the App Store, it's free. And go ahead and download Paco Pablo's app. To look up the correct spelling of that name, just go ahead and open up your program and it should be right in there for it. You're gonna wanna have it for the next section. So, without further ado, your lunch will be held in the conference center. To be easy, you'll exit through the exit doors, go straight out, and you'll come right around the corner. And don't worry, if you get lost, we'll have lots of us telling you where to go. Thank you, enjoy your lunch.